Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining me today in today's podcast on a very unique subject matter that most people really don't think much about. But when you hear this entire recording, you will understand why I'm covering this subject and why it's so important. What is the subject? It's the epidemic of underweight adults in developing countries. Now, I almost called it the epidemic of underweight and depleted adults, and I almost said in a United States where it's more prevalent, but I stuck to changing it to developing countries. So we're not talking about underweight, malnourished people in Africa and developing countries. We're talking about people who are underweight, depleted in Western countries. That's our subject today. Now, first, we're gonna talk about what are the signs of being underweight and depleted, because most people who are underweight and depleted, don't know they're underweight and depleted. They just think, "Wow, I'm so thin, and I can still fit in my bikini that I used to wear when I was 18 years old," and they're very happy with that. They don't think that's a big problem. So you have to first know how to recognize that you are underweight. And then you have to acknowledge that being underweight is a type of depletion. It's a lacking. And we're going to cover that. And then we're going to cover out what are the causes. What is causing this? Why do we have Western society with availability of food and vitamins and medical care and herbal remedies all here available, and we're still depleted and underweight? And then I'm going to also talk about what are the health hazards for being depleted and underweight. And once you hear that, then you'll understand the great importance of this subject. And maybe you or maybe somebody in your life you're going to realize is depleted and underweight, and they don't realize it and don't realize the harm that they're doing to their health due to it. And that's why it's an epidemic, because people aren't aware that it's a health problem. They think being thin is healthy. So let's talk about first, what are the signs of being underweight? Very easy to figure out. Basically, it's a type of lacking of tissue. It could be a lack of blood. So if you have anemia, you have vitamin deficiencies, that's a type of deficiency right there. If you have osteopenia, osteoarthritis, degenerative bones, clearly seen in your own fingernails. If your fingernails are splitting, brittle, and your teeth are cracking, you're getting a lot of cavities, that's all bone tissue. So if they're cracking and they're brittle, then you're depleted in your bones. So if you don't have much muscle on your body, it's a type of tissue that's depleted. And you can see this by looking at your gums. Now, you can also look at somebody's arms and muscles and ask them, do they feel heavy? I mean, do they feel weak when they pick up things? Do they feel weak? Not tired, but weak. Like people said, well, yeah, when I used to just pick the trash up and just throw it in the bin, no problem. And now I just feel like, God, even I'm picking something up, I feel weak. And then you look at the gums. The gums are muscle without skin. If the gums are receding, another sign of lack of muscle tissue, which we can trace back in most cases to a low protein diet. And then what else? So we've got the blood could be depleted, the bones can be depleted, the muscle can be depleted, and your body fat is the one that everybody's trying to lose. Everybody's trying to lose fat, but they don't understand that lack of fat creates many symptoms. And we can tell if you have a lack of fat, many of these signs: 1, hard stools; 2, chronic dry skin. And the easiest is to just look at the back of your hand and feel your skin. And if your skin is paper thin, you're not consuming enough fat in the diet. When we say fat, means all types of oils and dairy and even animal protein. All that together is fat. In nutritional sciences, we've got the fundamentals of fat and protein and carbohydrates and fiber. So these are the essential nutrients. So if you don't have enough fat, then you're going to have all types of health problems. If you don't have enough protein, you can have a bunch of health problems. So, these are what we call essential for your body to function and to make more tissue. So, what the main sign of an underweight person is very easy: bony. Just take a look at the back of your hand, and you can see my hand. You don't see any bones sticking out. You don't see any veins sticking out. So that's not underweight. When you can see gaps between the bones, that's underweight. If you can see the veins through the skin, that's lack of fat. Too little fat in the diet. Now, sometimes the people can be consuming the fat, but they're unable to digest the fat. So this is another issue. You could have gallbladder problems, liver problems, etc., not making enough bile. And then you're not able to digest the fat, break it down into fatty acids, absorb it. And so you end up with these low fat symptoms, even though you are consuming it. So we can break that down to poor digestion of fat, which is kind of another subject. And also sometimes people are even eating sufficiently and they're still losing weight and depleted. And that can be traced back to, many health conditions, just poor digestion. And of course, more serious conditions like inflammatory colon conditions or ulcerative colitis, diarrhea. These can also result in weight loss, even if you're eating. And of course, cancer in the later stages can result in rapid weight loss and depletion. So there are many causes, but the main cause of being underweight is eating insufficient food. You could call that dieting, over dieting, skipping meals, fasting, juicing, living off of coffee, too extreme of a diet, no animal protein, no wheat, no dairy. And that's the trend today, is to eliminate everything. Now people are even eliminating fruit. Can you believe it? I mean, the only thing they haven't eliminated is vegetables, because everybody's now first anti-meat, then anti-dairy, then anti-grains, and now they're anti-fruit. I mean, you're running out of food categories here. And it's that and then they start taking supplements and protein powders to try to make up the difference. And most of these are synthetic in the first place, and they're isolated synthetic nutrients that aren't complete nutritional source. So you end up still with, degenerative bones, muscle cramping, and other symptoms of nutritional deficiency, low magnesium, neurological issues, anxiety, low fat, and low brain matter, white brain matter, leading to, dementia. We're going to see so many elderly people who have been doing the low-fat diet for 30 years, and they results in a type of dementia due to the low white brain matter, which is made mostly of fat. Back to the other big sign to know a person is underweight, because underweight equals depleted. It's just a matter of where are they depleted, what tissue, whether it's a bone tissue or muscle tissue. But most common is just fat tissue, because, people, particularly women, are trying to avoid fat or be fat. I don't even like the word fat. So a lot of times with women, I can't even say you need to eat more fat, because just the word fat upsets them, and it just goes against everything they've been thinking their whole life is to try to lose weight and not be fat. So I say you have to have more oil in the diet, because you want more lubrication. You don't want dry skin, dry stools, dry lips, dry body. You get it? You don't want to be a dry woman. Not good. And of course, no organ in the body is dry. I mean, every organ in the body should have some moisture and fat to it. And that's like there's no dry organ and there's really no cold organ except the men's testes. They should remain cool. And that's why they're outside, the only organ outside of the body. But for all other organs, we should have warm foods and warm things to keep our organs healthy, and cold is very unhealthy for the body. But also dryness is a big problem for the body. Once you have, more examples of low fat diet. Bony means you can see the collarbone, like I do mostly Zoom appointments. So sometimes I ask the person, can I just see your collarbone? I mean, it would help if I could see their rib cage, but I want them to keep their clothes on. So I just the collarbone. So if you look at a person with their collarbone and you see big holes right here, look at yourself now. If you're a thin 110-pound person, if you see big holes right here, those are called holes. And you see big gaps between your bones and it's bony. And your joints are cracking and your skin is thin. You are depleted in fat tissue. But we need fat for the body. We need it so your bones aren't cracking. Lack of lubrication. And you're cracking joints today, 10 years, they're painful. And the low bones need fat. The liver needs fat to make a bile. Or the hormones are basically, made of fat. So, or oil or fat, whatever we want to call it here. But you need fat, just like a car. You could drive your car around all for years and never put oil in it. And if it's a brand new car, it's still going to burn up some fat. And if you don't check that oil and put in sufficient oil every once in a while, even a new car, but definitely an old car or an older person or a woman who's menstruating, they're going to lose more fat through the menstrual process from losing the blood than a man. So women can become depleted much easier than a man, a menstruating woman, because she's losing all that blood. Plus, she's got more social pressure to stay thin. So she's trying to diet more, fasting more, skipping meals more. Plus, she's having menstrual cycle and losing blood. So it's mostly the women that end up in this situation where they are depleted. I have many patients who came to me and they complained about gas, bloating, cracking joints, anxiety, poor sleep, insomnia, dry, hard stools. So I put them on a high-fat diet. So you can start to have butter, you start to have eggs, you start to have cheese. And mostly they like these foods. They just got it stuck in their head that they're bad. So they've eliminated them. So I tell them, and they're bony. Then we're talking about a bony person. I tell them, go get off your vegan diet, just go start having fish. And a lot of times before I tell them to have the fish, I say, do you like fish? Oh yeah, I love it. But they're not doing it for whatever reason in their head. But once they get going, they start liking it. I mean, you could say, but fish could have mercury, animal protein could have estrogen, there's all other reasons. But you don't want to deplete yourself. That's the worst mistake you could ever make for your health. And we're going to talk about more of the health problems that result by being this depleted. And cancer is one of them. Low immunity is another one. Weakness, fatigue, shorter lifespan. How's that? I mean, if you're underweight and depleted for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, you're not going to live as long. Hey, but you may still fit in that bikini. And that's mostly what people are thinking. But you should be thinking, I want to live long. I don't want to get sick. I don't want to get cancer. I want to have strong immunity. I want to be strong. Well, how can you be strong when you're underweight, depleted, and skipping meals and living off of coffee or smoothies? You can't do it. So if you're you got the bones, these collarbones, sticking out. You got your bones here sticking out. Your cheekbones are sticking out. I mean, you're bony. That's the sign of underweight, depleted. Now, of course, many women will say, but I'm happy like this. I feel better like this. Well, I say, ma'am, I mean, you may like it, but you're depleted. You're underweight. It's not healthy. And then I put them on a diet, more animal protein, more fat, stop skipping the meals, stop this intermediate fasting, stop the juicing, stop living off of coffee, start having 3 full meals a day. And, some fruit in between. You can't be snacking all day. It's never healthy, but they can have some fruit, some bananas, some dates. I mean, these are kind of fattening foods, cheese and butter, etc. So they come back a month later. They say, doctor, I have good news and bad news. I go, okay, tell me the good news first. Cheer me up. She goes, well, my stools aren't dry and hard anymore, and I'm not constipated. I go, that's good. You don't want dry, hard stools. That can lead to hemorrhoids, diverticulitis, and even colon cancer. So glad that's resolved. And that was because she started adding more oil, more butter to her diet, because the lack of fat makes your stools dry and hard, because the colon, in its peristaltic action, is taking out all the water, but it doesn't take out the fat. And that's what keeps it from getting too dry and hard and tearing up your rectum. So that's good. And then she says, and I'm sleeping better. I feel more grounded. My anxiety's better. And I go, that's good, because you haven't been skipping meals. If you skip meals, you're going to become like a little crazy, like a Karen, and be freaking out because you'll get anxious when you don't eat, because you didn't have enough body weight to last the whole afternoon. When you skip that meal, the body's depleted. It's in a state of depletion. It's your body thinks you're starving out there, and it doesn't know you're, fasting or following an Instagram diet. It doesn't know that. It just thinks, hey, we're not getting enough food. And of course, that's the number one cause for fertility. Almost all the fertility cases I get are underweight, skinny, depleted women, like 80, 90%. There are other causes, of course, fibroids and endometriosis and other, issues. But number one, depletion, because the body sees you as not getting sufficient nutrients and food. So it's thinking it better shut down the reproductive system. Now, it's really clear for women because they just shut it down. You don't get a period, because a period, you're losing the menstrual blood. It's a depleting process in itself. I mean, even for healthy women, you feel tired, you feel depleted. You're losing all this nutrients. You're losing all this iron. You're losing all this blood. And you have to make new blood. So it's depleting even for a healthy woman. But a woman not eating much, not having much body fat, not having any animal protein, it's going to be even more depleting. But people just have some stimulants, some coffee, some chocolate, to keep going. But they're never resolved the depletion. They're just pushing past it. And then, of course, you end up with adrenal fatigue and all other kinds of problems. So back to the story of the woman, and this is many, many cases where they come back and they say, okay, their bowels are good. They're not so anxious now. They're sleeping better. All these things are better. And I go, that sounds great. They said, even my joints don't hurt. There's no more cracking anymore. And, but there was one bad news. And I go, oh, what's that, ma'am? She goes, I put on like 6 pounds eating all this bread and butter and cheese and meat. I put on 6 pounds. And I go, what about your dress size? Is it the same? She goes, yes, same. Does you look fatter? Your husband or your sister, or you look fatter if you measure your waist? No, same size. What about your hips? Same size? Everything's same size. So I said, that proves you were depleted. You put on 6 pounds and you didn't get any bigger. That's because you were so depleted, you had empty spaces in between your joints and in your body that needed to fill in. And then I say, you won't keep going up. You're what, 40 years old? You've been thin, skinny woman your whole life. They go, yeah, I've always been thin and skinny. I could never gain weight easy. And I go, that's right. So you're not going to ever be an overweight woman. Just keep on eating and you won't keep going. Once your body reaches that state where it's got, okay, we got enough extra body fat and muscle and protein. We filled in. We're no longer depleted. Then the body will stop gaining weight. So the second appointment, month later, 2 months. So it's 2 months since they started on my Vata pacifying, high fat, high protein, 3 meals a day diet with the bananas and dates. It's a weight gaining diet, no doubt about it. We just don't want to tell you. We don't want to use the word weight gaining because they're going to feel so much better and really realize that they didn't get any bigger. A lot of women have bellies, and that's usually to constipation, gas, and bloating. It's all digestion related. They think that, I got this belly, so they start skipping meals, not eating, but they're just dieting and even going to the gym unnecessarily because that belly wasn't from excess fat. They could be depleted with a belly because that's just constipation, digestion problems. They will go away quickly. And a lot of women say, yeah, I gained weight and the belly went down. Well, that's right, because the belly was just your poor digestion and constipation, and your body was so depleted that you could put on 5-6 pounds and you didn't actually become any bigger. And so then they start, and then the next month, so now 60 days, 90 days later, I go, what happened now? Now, the last month, I didn't gain any weight, but you were still eating 3 meals a day, having a lot of fish, sweet potatoes, butter, cheese. Yeah, I love it. I'm eating it every day. And the last month, I didn't gain any weight. The first month, I gave 5 pounds. Then I gained 2 pounds. And the last month, no, I'm just stable. But you're still eating a lot. She goes, I'm eating a lot. My friends, my husband are surprised because she was used to, smoothies, juicing, skipping meals and all that. Now she's eating 3 giant meals a day and she's not gaining any weight at all. I said, that's right, because you already have a fast metabolism. You're Vata type, you're moving, you're active, and, you're not going to really be overweight very easily unless you really eat bad food, start snacking all day on nuts and crackers and chips, which a lot of people do, which creates their weight gain, or you get constipated and then you get the belly. You get, eating bad, food combining, then you get bloated, so you start looking fat. So these are all separate subjects. And then they get it. I have to confess, I have to trick a lot of ladies into just eating this food and just having faith and confidence in me and not say the word you're going to gain weight. Don't use the word fat. Talk about you need lubrication, sweetie, lubrication. Don't want to be dry. Oh, yeah, don't want to be dry, they say. So then they'll eat this food. Don't want to be weak. Don't want to be bony. Nobody likes a bony lover. Oh, no. So I kind of have to motivate them to just keep eating and then they gain weight. They panic. I have to keep them going. And then the weight loss just stops and they go from say they were 1,615. They go up to 120, 121, and then they just plateau at 121, even though they're still eating. So that 6 pounds they gained, that was the depletion. And once they've got it and they realize it ain't going up, it's just staying at 121, and they still get to eat all this food and they feel better. They feel more grounded. They don't feel anxious. They're sleeping better. They're not having dry, hard, constipating stools, aggravating their hemorrhoids. Then they get it and they're like, okay, I got it. I can't be fasting and juicing and skipping meals. And I go, that's right. That's what I told you in the beginning. And sometimes it takes me a half an hour to talk a woman into eating more. Can you believe it? I even joke with the overweight people. I prefer overweight people because if I tell them, hey, you can't be snacking all day. Why don't you, instead of 3 meals, why don't you have 2 meals? You can't be eating all this animal protein. You can't be having all this dairy and the cheese. They go, yeah, it makes sense. Good. Yeah. Okay. You're right. And you can't be having bananas and dates. Those are fattening. Yeah. I don't like them anyway. They're too sweet and heavy. So I put them on 2 meals a day, give them a lot of beans, low fat diet, low protein diet, kind of, I don't want to use the word, but, a little bit more vegan leaning, let's just say. They lose 10 pounds. They're very happy, but they agree with everything. except for the crazy paleo people who think eating meat's going to help them lose weight. But that doesn't go too long. And eventually they get fatty liver, gallbladder problems, or a tumor growing. And then they wake up to the fallacy of that fad diet. But most people who are overweight realize they need to eat less fat, less protein, less snacking. So they're in agreement. We're all in agreement. There's no tension in the appointment. But when you're dealing with a thin, underweight, middle-aged woman, she doesn't want to put on a pound of weight. She likes being skinny and bony. Then you've got a little tension. But I'm a professional. I've had thousands of clients. I know how to sweet talk them into eating more. And basically, I don't tell them they're going to gain weight. I just tell them, trust me, keep eating. You'll be fine. You're never going to be an overweight woman. And I've seen women put on as much as 10 pounds and say, you tell me if you got to even change your dress size. And they go, no, same. But you put on 10 pounds. Where did this go? She goes, well, it did I'm not so bony. You can't see my bones sticking out, and I can put it went a little everywhere. Before you could see my cheekbones, and now there's a little more face to me. And I bet your butt got a little bigger. Yeah, butt got a little bigger. Now my tailbone, I don't feel my tailbone when I sit down. That's another sign you're underweight. If you sit down and you feel your tailbone, you don't have a big enough butt. What's the butt made of? Fat. So what's the fat doing on your butt? It's protecting your spine. It's just protecting your tailbone. So when you sit down, you're not, hitting your spinal column or your tailbone and having that discomfort. So you have to accept the fat is protective. It's protecting your skin. If you fall down and you have thin skin, you're just going to bleed and be in pain and bruise. But you got a little thicker skin, you got a little padding. And like I say to the ladies, men really don't like bony women. Maybe as a supermodel up on this far away, these skinny, bony women look great, but in bed, no. Most men would rather have a little bit more of a full-bodied woman and not be making love to a bunch of bones. No. So that's a motivator that I have to use too. But I digress. Let's focus on the depletion. What else does it lead to if you don't wake up and start eating more? Degenerative bone problems. Oh, anxiety too. You're anxious. The body's panicking all the time because it's never getting enough food. So these people are nervous all the time, and they often are called Karens because they panic all the time because they're underweight. They're not like a nice, heavy, calm guy who's like, okay, no problem, sweetie, I can flow with it. This is a guy, he can go all day and not eat and still stay calm because he's got a little extra body fat. Now, of course, you could have too much body fat, but that's another story. And most people are aware of what's too much. But the whole point here is there's an epidemic of underweight adults in United States and developing countries who are doing this on purpose to stay thin, thinking thin equals healthy, and they are actually depleted. And their bones are depleted. They lead to osteopenia, osteoarthritis. Then they start having neurological issues, nerve problems, tremors, memory problems, cramping in the muscles. You start to have a whole cascading problems once you're not getting enough nutrients. Now, everybody tries to just take more vitamins and supplements and protein powders, but this is really not completely effective. So you really should be thinking more like they did in the ancient times. Eat a wide variety of food. Don't restrict yourself. And we should be more intuitive. We should use our intuition. Like today, I don't feel like eating much. I feel a little heavy. I'm just going to have something light like lentil soup for dinner. Or I just feel so hungry and weak and tired. I need to have a big piece of fish. Or if you're a woman and you just had 3 days of heavy bleeding, your body may be telling you need a hamburger. I don't mean go to a junk food place, but maybe you need some red meat. And that's what they give you in Ayurveda to replenish your blood and your iron fast is red meat soup. So you got to listen to your body. Your body's telling you. It's just that we're not listening to our body. We're listening to social media for our health advice. And then we're just getting all confused from all this information when your body's actually telling you, hey, we're panicking here. You're not even eating enough to keep us going as they shut down your reproductive system, because you can't be having a baby when you can't even feed yourself. And it also goes for men. Making semen takes a lot. I mean, they say to make blood takes so many pounds of food to make a little couple drops of blood, and a lot of blood to make semen. It's a kind of a showing you that it takes a lot of food to make more semen. We know men after the sexual act are usually hungry, and why they like to marry a good cooking woman, well, besides most men are a little on the lazy side and would rather have a woman do it for them, but they also, when they're sexually active, they need food. They need somebody cooking for them and making the food to re-nourish them so they can keep going, of course, athletes, they don't have sex before a big athletic performance because the next day they're kind of depleted from the act of losing that semen. So if you're a man and you're thin and you're depleted and you're bony and you're not having any dairy, any milk, and you're onto some vegan craze, you're not going to be a great lover. So it goes both ways for men and women. You need strength, stamina, not just to be a good lover, but just to get through life. You want to have strength. In Ayurveda we call ojas. It doesn't mean immunity. It means like an inner strength inner strength against disease, to not get disease, to not get sick. It's more than just not catching a cold. It's about you have this kind of inner immunity, we call ojas in Ayurveda, where you don't get sick or infections or cancer easily. And in fact, today I had a young woman, thin, skinny, bony, who was depleted, and she's asking me why she got uterine cancer. So I told her, you're depleted for a long time. And your immunity has been low for a long time. And if you want to avoid, infection, and she's catching colds all the time, that's not a good sign. If you're catching colds and flus all the time, it means your immunity is low. Keeping cancer at bay is having good inner strength, good immunity, good resistance to disease, resistance to pathogens, bacteria, viruses. The body is strong. So you want to be strong, not thin and weak. I hope you get the point. And so I would if you're in this category of bony person with your ribs sticking out and holes in your collarbone and thin skin and bony, then you better rethink your whole diet and your whole lifestyle. And particularly an elderly person. I get elderly people all the time. Usually the daughter says, I want you to see my mother. And then I see the mother and she's like, 80, 90 years old, and she's skinny and bony. And what are they feeding her? Salads, beans, juicing. Oh my God, forget it. Look at her. She's underweight. If you keep going, she's going to die. I bet she's weak. Oh, she's weak. She can't get out of bed. What did the doctors say? They tested everything. Everything looks fine. But she's not eating enough. You can't give a person who's underweight and depleted salad and beans. That's for losing weight. She needs to be having, and sometimes the mother's there, and I speak to her a lot of times that are like speaking another language, but I ask the mother, do you like butter? Yes and no. Don't think about it. Oh yeah, I like it. Do you like eggs? Yes. Do you like fish? Yes. Do you like a vegetable soup like sweet potatoes, carrots, and beets, roots with some bone broth, creamy, with a lot of oil? Yes. So why are you giving them salads? Why are you giving them beans? She just said she likes fish. She likes sweet potatoes. She likes butter. That's exactly what she should be eating. You need to put 10 pounds on mama ASAP. She's going downhill. You just told me she's so weak she hardly gets out of bed. Why? I wouldn't even give her water at that point. I would just give her, fruit juice, grape juice, mango juice, carrot juice. I mean, get these nutrients in her, plus 3 meals a day. And, when people have some reason, well, she had cancer 10 years ago, so we don't want to give her any fruit because fruit feeds cancer. But you're starving her to death. I just said, Mama, do you like bananas? Oh, I love bananas. You like dates? Oh, everybody likes dates. Give her the bananas and the dates, for God's sakes. 1 month later, Mama's running around. 1 month. That's the great thing about being depleted is you can fix it quick. It's much faster than losing the weight. Put it on because the body's craving these foods. You're just not doing it. And if you're drinking coffee all day, you're going to keep going to work and not even realize how depleted you are. You may feel tired, but you're drinking the coffee and it's kind of masking over the problem. And that's very common. Then, of course, your adrenals burn out and, and the whole cascading problems. You'd have been better off to just be few pounds overweight. You go look at history. Go look at the Roman statues, the Greek statues. We don't see skinny, bony women because they would have too many complications during birth. They're too weak. We never would see a skinny, bony man because who can protect you? Who can fight off the bad guys? Who can go hunting? Who can fight the bear? It ain't a skinny guy. It's a guy with some muscles, and maybe even a little belly, because that belly shows that he ain't going to die. He could go out in the morning and hunt all day and come back, and he ain't going to pass out because he's got a little belly. He can go for a day or two. So, you're going to have less stress if you got just a couple pounds extra. You feel satiated. You got nice meals. You're not underweight. You're healthy. You're balanced. But in our society today, we've got this, social pressure and social media confusion that being skinny is healthy. Well, it's not. I get people all the time from gyms who, have even, have all these muscles. Of course, all that excess protein, that creates the uric acid, the gout, the kidney failure, all these problems from, these people in the gyms just having protein powders and a lot of protein. This is a disaster, high protein diet, creating a lot of health problems, tumors, growths, constipation, gallbladder, fatty liver, high uric acid, gout, kidney failure. It's a disaster, high protein diet. But they got those big muscles, so everybody thinks they're healthy. It's with the men too. The men just go for the muscles and still try to cut the fat out. So women, they may not have the fat or the muscles, but it's still a type of depletion. And you're still unhealthy. And you're still weak. And you're still going to have cascading health problems the longer you do it. You got to listen to the body, eat the healthy food. Don't eat for 4 or 5 hours. Have your next meal when you're hungry. And of course, all afternoon, you could have a few little fruit and a little snacks, but not only fruit, not cookies and candy and nuts. It's a very bad habit, snacking on nuts. And then a nice meal and dinner. Now, of course, in Ayurveda, we have, like 9 different body types. So once you understand your body type, then you will know what food to eat. Doesn't matter what condition people come to me with. I will always give the diet that's based on their body type. And then I will treat the health condition with the herbs. I don't have to do crazy restrictive diets. Another crazy restrictive diet people do is actually the Candida diet. Well, they've been on the Candida diet for a year and they've lost like 10 pounds. And now they're a skinny, bony, underweight person because they've been, I haven't had any grains. I haven't had any sweets. It's another radical diet. I just give them some antifungal tea and take care of it with the herbs. I don't have to restrict their diet. So hope you got it. Don't be skinny. Don't be weak. Don't be bony. Listen to your body. Don't follow social media type of extreme diets, whether they're extreme vegan in one direction or extreme, in the other direction of high protein, animal protein, like this carnivore diet. These are all extremely unhealthy diets that are going to lead to health problems because of their extreme nature. So be healthy, be natural. Thank you once again, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you learned. And let's thank our sponsor, Herbman Teas, where you can get the best herbal teas on the planet by going to herbmanteas.com. And there you can buy even weight building, strengthening, adrenal building, muscle building, blood building products. That's right. So people are mostly thinking weight loss, but you realize I got a lot of products for building and strengthening because there's so many people who are depleted, and I'm trying to build and strengthen them. But it all starts with your eating habits and your diet. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. And thanks to our sponsor, herbmanteas.com. God bless you all.